Topic: Mechanics, Vectors and Scalars continued. Aims of lesson. To introduce the concept of the resultant vector when two or more vectors are acting together. To explain the different ways in which the resultant vector can be determined. Introduction: Vectors are physical quantities that have magnitude, size, and direction. The resultant. It is useful to know the combined effect of a number of vectors. This means what happens when a number of vectors are acting together. Definition. The resultant is the single vector that has the same effect as all the vectors together. Concepts and skills: how to determine the resultant. The resultant is found by addition. The resultant of two forces F1 and F2 can be written as a vector equation. Resultant, Fi equals F1 plus F2. Can you identify quantities as scalars or vectors? Draw vectors. Addition method to determine the resultant. If different vectors, for example forces, act upon the same object at the same time, it is useful to find the combined effect of all the force vectors. Worked examples of finding the resultant. Vectors acting in a straight line and in the same direction. Force 1 is equal to 2n east, force 2 is equal to 3n east, force 3 is equal to 4n east. Take east as your positive, plus, direction. Graphically, 2n 3n 4n. Resultant equals 9n east. Algebraically. Resultant equals force 1 plus force 2 plus force 3. Equals 2n plus 3n plus 4n. Equals 9n east. Vectors acting in a straight line but in opposite directions. Force 1 is equal to 4n east, force 2 is equal to 7n west. Take east as your positive, plus, direction. Graphically, 4n. 7n. Resultant equals 3n west. Algebraically. Resultant force equals force 1 plus force 2. Equals 4n plus, minus 7n. Equals, 3n. Equals 3n west. Please note, the negative sign in minus 3n indicates the opposite direction, and if east is the positive direction then west is the negative direction. Vectors acting at an angle. Tail-to-head method of finding the resultant. Instructions on how to graphically use the tail-to-head method. 1. Check the scale provided, or use your own. 2. Draw the first vector in the correct direction. 3. Draw the second vector in the correct direction by adding the tail of the second vector to the head of the first vector. 4. Repeat until all the vectors have been drawn in the correct directions as indicated. 5. Finally, draw the resultant vector from the tail of the first vector to the head of the last vector in a straight line. For example, home. Vector 1. Friend school. Vector 2. Resultant, straight line from home to school. If you walk from the home to friend's house, vector 1, and then with your friend to school, and that is vector 2, the resultant is the vector that indicates the line if you walk from home straight to school. In both instances you start at home and end at school. Worked example. The following forces act at a point on a body: 2n to the right, 4n to the right, 3n to the left, 1n to the left. Find the resultant of the forces by 1. Drawing a scale vector diagram using the tail-to-head method. 2. Calculation, or algebraically. Solution. 1. A suitable scale is 10 mm, 1n. Take to the right as the positive direction. Plot the forces as shown below. The resultant force, Fr, is 2n acting to the right. Scale, 10 mm, 1n. 2n 4n. FR1 N3 N2 FR equals force 1 plus force 2 plus force 3 plus force 4 equals 2N plus 4N plus minus 3N plus minus 1N equals plus 2N equals 2N to the right. Activity/assessment. Activity 1. Two vectors, F1 and F2 act on an object. F1 equals 3N upwards and F2 equals 4N downwards. 1.1 Make a tail-to-head sketch vector diagram of the forces using a scale of 20 mm equals 1N. 1.2 Calculate the resultant force. 2. Draw tail-to-head sketch vector diagrams to find the resultant of the following sets of forces. 2.1 F1 equals 3N and F2 equals 5N both act on an object towards the right. 2.2 F1 equals 3N acts towards the west and F2 equals 5N acts on the object towards the east. 2.3 F1 equals 6N upwards, F2 equals 3N upwards, F3 equals 12N downwards. 3. Two forces F1 and F2 act on an object. F1 is 20N acting to the right, but the value of F2 can change. Use vector diagrams and calculations to determine F2 for each of the following resultant forces. The resultant is given. 3.1 FR equals 25N to the right. 3.2 FR equals 15N to the right. 3.3 FR equals 5N to the left. Consolidation. You can now identify physical quantities as scalar or vectors quantities. You should be able to draw vectors by using a scale. You should understand what the resultant vector is. You must understand what is meant by the tail-to-head method of finding the resultant vector. You must be able to find the resultant vector by of vectors acting in a straight line in the same direction and in opposite directions. Good luck with the lesson. Values. Attentiveness and independence are the values specific for the lesson. You must follow the rules and learn to work on your own. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel.